Christmas Day, 1929, was meant to be a moment of respite and joy, even amidst the grinding poverty of the Great Depression. In the quiet rural community of Germantown, North Carolina, Charles Davis Charlie Lawson, a sharecropper, had by all appearances achieved the American dream. He was a husband, a father of 7 children, and by 1927 had purchased his own farm on Brook Cove Road. Yet, beneath the veneer of this ordinary life lay a terror so profound that it would forever etch the name Lawson into the darkest corners of American true crime history. The family consisted of Charlie, age 43, his wife, Fanny Manring Lawson, age 37, and their 7 children, Arthur, 19, Marie, 17, Carrie, 12, Maybelle, 7, James, 4, Raymond, 2, and the infant, Mary Lou, 4 months. This large family, seemingly close-knit and working hard on their tobacco farm, was poised at the precipice of an unimaginable tragedy that would leave 8 people dead before the day was done. Just days before that horrific Christmas, Charlie Lawson undertook an action that, in retrospect, appears deeply unsettling and highly calculated. For a working-class rural family of their era, economic decisions were often matters of survival. Yet, Charlie spent a considerable and highly unusual sum of money. He took his wife and all 7 children into town, bought them new clothes, and commissioned a formal studio portrait. This financial extravagance, particularly the expense of a professional photograph, was highly uncommon for a family in their economic circumstances. The decision to acquire this photograph suggests a profound psychological component to the coming events, indicating that Charlie's ultimate act was likely considered and planned for some time before execution, rather than being the result of a sudden, spontaneous break. This portrait, now iconic and eerily preserved, functions as a chilling memento mori, a conscious act by Charlie to immortalize his family exactly as he desired them to be seen, dressed in their finest, before he systematically destroyed the very lives he had just chosen to document. The photograph, therefore, stands not merely as a family keepsake, but as physical evidence of a mind moving rationally towards a terrifying, pre-planned conclusion. The methodical nature of the crime became further apparent on the morning of December 25th. Before beginning the massacre, Charlie ensured that the one person capable of offering serious resistance was removed from the scene. His eldest son, 19-year-old Arthur Lawson, the only family member to survive the day, was sent away on a highly specific errand to travel into town to purchase additional ammunition. This errand, disguised under the tradition of Christmas target shooting, served a cold, practical purpose. Arthur, an adult, was the most likely individual to physically challenge or successfully restrain his 43-year-old father, especially if historical accounts are accurate that Arthur had been known to intervene in family disputes previously. By sending Arthur away to acquire supplies directly related to the weapons Charlie was about to use, Charlie successfully neutralized the largest threat to his plan, creating the necessary window of isolation for the atrocity to unfold without interruption. Arthur's survival was, thus, not a stroke of luck, but a chilling consequence of his father's detailed strategy to isolate his victims. With the most formidable threat neutralized, Charlie Lawson began the horrifying sequence of events that would claim 7 lives. Armed with a 12-gauge shotgun, he positioned himself near the farm's tobacco barn. His first targets were his 2 middle daughters, Carrie, age 12, and Maybelle, age 7, who were walking away from the main house, heading toward their aunt and uncle's residence. This selection suggests a deliberate timing, choosing a moment when the children were vulnerable and separated from the main dwelling. As the 2 girls came within range, Charlie fired, striking both with the powerful shotgun. However, the calculated depth of his homicidal intent became immediately clear. Shooting them was not enough. To ensure their absolute demise, Charlie approached the children and bludgeoned them both, guaranteeing that neither child could possibly survive their injuries. This dual method of killing, using a firearm for range and efficiency, followed by blunt force for confirmation, underscores a ruthless determination to eliminate his family completely. What followed the initial violence was arguably the most unsettling element of the entire crime. transitioning the act from simple murder into a cold, ritualistic execution. After confirming their deaths, Charlie carried the small bodies of Carrie and Maybelle into the silence of the tobacco barn. There, he carefully arranged them. He meticulously crossed their arms over their chests in a posture of artificial repose and then placed rocks underneath their heads. This bizarre act of post-mortem arrangement is crucial to understanding Charlie's disturbed state. Most instances of familicide are driven by impulsive rage that immediately culminates in the perpetrator's suicide. Charlie, however, paused the violence to impose a chilling sense of order on the scene of destruction. The crossing of the arms suggests a morbid attempt to grant the deceased a final, formal peace, while the placement of the rocks beneath the heads potentially signified permanence or recognition. This level of psychological control, the need to systematically confirm death and then arrange the remains, moves the narrative beyond a simple psychotic snap and establishes the act as a premeditated, ritualized killing, providing the event with its unique and enduringly horrific signature. Having completed the first phase of his plan, Charlie Lawson returned to the farmhouse. His wife, Fanny Lawson, must have known something terrible had occurred, alerted either by the sounds of the gunshots from the direction of the barn or the sudden, prolonged silence. She was confronted by Charlie on the porch of their home, where he shot her immediately. Fanny became the third victim of the day, signaling the swift acceleration of the violence toward the remaining members of the family inside the isolated dwelling. Inside the small farmhouse, the chaos began in earnest. Marie Lawson, age 17, heard the terrifying shotgun blast that killed her mother and screamed. The two youngest boys, James, 4, and Raymond, 2, scattered in a desperate, futile attempt to find a place to hide from the sudden, incomprehensible intrusion of madness into their home. Charlie quickly focused on Marie, shooting and killing her. He then tracked down the terrified young boys and killed them with gunshots as well. The frantic, desperate movements of the children, a teenager screaming and small boys scrambling for cover, juxtaposed against the cold, efficient sequence of Charlie's actions, creates a sickening thriller dynamic. He moved through the house not as a man driven solely by blind rage, but as an executioner completing a calculated list, determined to leave no life spared. The final act of the slaughter occurred in the destruction of the family's most vulnerable member, 4-month-old Mary Lou. The nature of her death marked a critical shift in Charlie's brutality. Unlike most of the other victims who died from shotgun blasts, the evidence suggests that the infant Mary Lou was bludgeoned to death. The choice of weapon, a switch from the distant, efficient shotgun to close contact, intimate, blunt force, is deeply significant. Bludgeoning is an act that requires immense physical proximity and endurance, highlighting a personal, visceral commitment to the murder. The decision to use such a method on a defenseless infant signifies Charlie's total dehumanization of his victims and his absolute resolve to ensure the complete termination of his family line. This devastating detail confirms that the violence was not limited to firearm use, but involved highly personal brutality directed at the core of the family structure. As the news of the unfolding tragedy spread rapidly through the small community, neighbors and law enforcement began to gather nervously at the periphery of the Lawson farm. The 7 family members inside the house and barn lay dead, but the perpetrator, Charlie Lawson, was still unaccounted for. He had fled the farmhouse and entered the nearby woods. Witnesses described hearing him moving and pacing within the foliage. When investigators later reached his body, they observed telltale signs of his final psychological state. A visible circle of footprints surrounding a specific tree, suggesting he had spent time meticulously pacing while the crowds gathered and the full horror of his acts was being discovered. The palpable tension for the assembled crowd, knowing the killer was just meters away, hidden in the dense woods, finally broke with the unmistakable sound of a single, final shotgun blast. Charlie Lawson had taken his own life, bringing the immediate violence to an end. Law enforcement soon located his body, where they also found letters addressed to his parents. In a final, frustrating act of evasion, these notes offered no genuine explanation or clear motive for the slaughter, sealing the entire tragedy in a terrifying veil of mystery. In the immediate aftermath, The community and media desperately searched for a rational explanation for a crime of such magnitude. One prominent theory focused on Charlie's physical health. Months before the murders, Lawson had sustained a head injury. Some friends and family members quickly speculated that this injury had altered his mental state, leading to a sudden psychotic break. This theory provided a simpler, externally attributed cause for the madness, seeking to explain the familicide through physical damage rather than internal, monstrous intent. However, medical evidence systematically dismantled this explanation. An autopsy was performed, and Charlie Lawson's brain was sent for specialized analysis at Johns Hopkins Hospital. The examination revealed no physical or structural abnormalities that could account for his dramatic shift in behavior or the homicidal act. This medical finding forced investigators and observers to conclude that the motivation was not derived from external trauma, but from a deeper, more complicated psychological darkness brewing within the tobacco farmer. The true motive, the one that provides the most compelling, if horrific, explanation, remained submerged for decades, hidden by shame, fear, and the community's desire to forget. The most potent and enduring theory only surfaced when close friends and family, finally achieving the courage to speak years later, revealed a shocking secret that may have been the ultimate trigger for the Christmas Day massacre. The claim centers around 17-year-old Marie Lawson. A close friend of Marie's, Ella May, disclosed that Marie had confided in her just weeks before Christmas 1929. Marie was pregnant, and the father was none other than Charlie Lawson. Furthermore, both Charlie and his wife Fanny were aware of the incestuous relationship and the resulting pregnancy. This horrendous discovery provides a terrifying rationale for the premeditated destruction of the family. The consensus among those who eventually revealed the secret suggests that Charlie's ultimate motive was to ensure this monstrous secret, the incestuous relationship, and the imminent birth of a child that would expose it, would never become public knowledge, and lead to overwhelming social and legal scandal. The necessity of silence provided the imperative for total extermination, turning a tragedy into a horrific act of self-preservation of reputation. The sheer scale and calculated horror of the Lawson family murders instantly captivated the nation, making front-page headlines even in papers as far away as the New York Times. However, the aftermath was marked not by solemn respect, but by an unsettling wave of morbid commercialization. In a desperate time marked by economic collapse, the Lawson farm rapidly became a bizarre tourist attraction. Visitors flocked to the crime scene, drawn by morbid curiosity. Disturbingly, during this period of Depression-era desperation, entrepreneurs capitalized on the trauma by selling gruesome mementos. Bloody photographs of the victims and the scene were circulated and sold as souvenirs. This unprecedented exploitation illustrates how the tragedy transcended a simple crime, transforming into a gruesome public spectacle and underscoring the profound human depravity that can accompany both the act of violence and the public reaction to it. The physical remains of the family were quickly buried in a mass grave at Browder Cemetery, yet the story's physical legacy continues to resonate throughout North Carolina. The bodies of the victims were transported and embalmed in a funeral home located on the second floor of what is now the Madison Dry Goods and Country Store. Today, this location has become synonymous with the tragedy, housing the Lawson Family Murder Museum and frequently cited as one of the state's most iconic haunted locations. The enduring lore suggests that the deep trauma inflicted that Christmas Day has bound the restless spirits of the Lawson family to the site where their bodies were prepared, solidifying the event as a permanent, chilling piece of regional history and fueling modern fascination with the haunting. The story was simply too potent to fade into historical obscurity. Its resonance ensured that the events of Christmas 1929 were immediately captured by American folklore. Shortly after the murders, a North Carolina singer-songwriter named Walter Kid Smith penned the Ballad of the Lawson Family Murder. This song became a regional hit and was later popularized through a 1956 recording by the Stanley Brothers. By transforming the tragic details into music, the community ensured that the narrative of Charlie Lawson and his horrific act would be sung and remembered, generation after generation, cementing the crime's place in the dark tapestry of Appalachian murder ballads. The life of Arthur Lawson, the 19-year-old son whom Charlie had strategically removed from the farm, provides a poignant epilogue to the massacre. Arthur was the sole surviving family member, left to navigate the world carrying the unspeakable burden of his entire family's destruction at the hands of his father. He eventually married and had children, attempting to build a life separated from the horror of his past. However, Arthur's life was also tragically cut short. Just 16 years after the Christmas Day tragedy in 1945, Arthur Lawson died in an automobile accident. His premature death added a final devastating layer of sorrow, suggesting that the shadow cast by his father's calculated madness never truly lifted, even for the one member who survived the shotgun's reach. The murder of the Lawson family remains one of the most meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed familicides in American history, defined by the dark, enduring mystery of its motive. The evidence points not to random madness, but to a calculated act of violence aimed at burying a secret too terrible to bear: the incestuous relationship and the resulting pregnancy. Charlie Lawson achieved the ultimate silence for himself, but left behind a legacy of horror that continues to echo 90 years later. Do you believe the head injury theory was a genuine factor? Or was the incestuous secret the only driving force behind this premeditated act of destruction? Can the calculated violence of a man who murders his own children ever be truly explained? Or do some acts of evil defy rational understanding? Let us know your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If you want more deep dives into the chilling, untold shadows of history, ensure you are subscribed to The Dark Silent, hit the like button, and ring that notification bell so you never miss a step into the darkness.